My wife laughed off the paternity test, saying it was just my paranoia. The results proved I wasn't the dad. Then I secretly had her spilled drink DNA matched to the real father. I presented both reports to her lawyer when she demanded child support. Her attorney was left speechless, dialing her in panic. I, 34 never thought I'd be the guy posting on this subreddit. Always figured these stories happened to other people, not me. But here I am, still processing everything that's happened over the past 6 months. My wife and I had been married for 7 years. We met in college, dated for 3 years, and tied the knot in what I thought was a perfect ceremony. We both had good careers, bought a nice house in the suburbs, and were living what I believed was the dream. About 2 years ago, we decided it was time to start a family. When she finally got pregnant last year, I was over the moon. I painted the nursery myself, assembled all the furniture, and even started reading parenting books. I went to every appointment, heard the heartbeat, saw the ultrasounds. I was all in. But something changed in her during the pregnancy. She became distant, protective of her phone, working late more often. I chalked it up to hormones and stress. I trusted her completely. Then came the birth. I was in the delivery room, cutting the cord, crying tears of joy. But when they handed me my daughter, something felt off. I couldn't place it at first. Everyone said she was beautiful, perfect. And she was. But as the days went by, I started noticing things. The baby had these distinctive dimples when she smiled. Neither my wife nor I have dimples. Her hair was coming in much lighter than either of ours. And her eyes, they were a striking shade of green. My wife's eyes are brown. Mine are blue. I tried to ignore the growing knot in my stomach. I told myself genetics are complicated. Maybe there was a recessive gene somewhere in our family trees. But the doubt had taken root, and it was growing. One night, about 3 weeks after the birth, I casually mentioned the dimples to my wife. Wonder where she got those from. They're adorable. The way she tensed up was subtle, but unmistakable. My grandfather had dimples, she said quickly. Too quickly. I'd met her grandfather before he passed. He didn't have dimples. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling like my world was starting to crack. The next day, I ordered a home paternity test online. When it arrived, I waited for a moment when my wife was out with the baby visiting her mother. I swabbed the inside of my cheek, then took a sample from the baby's pacifier. I sent it off, telling myself I was being paranoid, that I'd laugh about this later. A week passed. The results came by email while I was at work. I had to step outside to read it, my hands shaking so badly I could barely open the attachment. Probability of paternity, 0%. I read those words over and over, hoping they'd somehow change. They didn't. I wasn't the father of the child I'd been raising as my own for the past month. I drove home in a daze, not even remembering the journey. When I walked in, my wife was feeding the baby. She looked up and immediately knew something was wrong. "What is it?" she asked. I showed her the email. She read it, then laughed. Actually laughed. "This is ridiculous," she said. "Those home tests aren't accurate. You're being paranoid. Let's do an official one then," I said, my voice surprisingly calm despite the storm inside me. She refused at first, saying it was a waste of money, that I was being insecure. But I insisted, and finally, she agreed, probably thinking an official test would shut me up. We went to a clinic the next day. The results would take a week. Those 7 days were the longest of my life. We barely spoke. I slept in the guest room, claiming I didn't want to disturb the baby when she woke up for night feedings. The results confirmed what I already knew. I wasn't the father. When confronted with the official results, my wife broke down. She admitted to an affair with a coworker. It had lasted several months, ending shortly after she discovered she was pregnant. She claimed she truly believed the baby was mine, that the timing lined up. I wanted to believe her, but the math didn't add up. If she'd ended the affair when she found out she was pregnant, she must have known there was a possibility the baby wasn't mine. I moved out that night, staying with a friend while I figured out my next steps. I contacted a divorce attorney the following day. He advised me to gather evidence of the affair if possible, as it might help with the divorce proceedings in our state. That's when I started thinking more clearly. If I wasn't the father, who was? The coworker seemed the obvious answer. I remembered him from a company party, tall, with light hair and green eyes, and dimples when he smiled. I needed proof, but how? My wife wasn't going to tell me, and I couldn't exactly walk up to this guy and ask for a DNA sample. Then I remembered something my friend, who works in forensics, once mentioned about DNA testing. You can extract DNA from almost anything someone has touched or used. I came up with a plan. I told my wife I wanted to meet to discuss the divorce amicably. I suggested a coffee shop, neutral territory. I arrived early and chose a table in the corner. When she arrived, I noticed she looked tired, stressed. Despite everything, a part of me still cared. We talked about practical matters, the house, finances, belongings. I deliberately avoided mentioning the baby or the affair. I wanted her to let her guard down. Would you like another drink? I asked after she'd finished her first latte. She nodded, and I went to get it. When I returned, I deliberately bumped the table, causing her to spill a small amount on the saucer. I'm so sorry, I said, offering napkins. After we finished our conversation, she left. I waited until she was out of sight, then carefully collected the cup and saucer, placing them in a plastic bag I'd brought specifically for this purpose. That same day, I drove to a private DNA testing facility 2 towns over. I explained my situation to the technician, who was sympathetic. They extracted DNA from the cup and ran it against the baby's DNA sample I'd kept from the home test. While waiting for those results, I did some research on the coworker. Through social media and mutual connections, I discovered he was an avid sports fan. He supported a local team and frequently attended games at a nearby bar. I went to that bar the next weekend, spotted him watching a game. I sat nearby, watching as he drank several beers. When he went to the bathroom, leaving his half-finished beer behind, I made my move. I pretended to bump into his table while passing, apologized to his friends, and in the confusion, managed to swipe his glass. I took it straight to the same testing facility. The technician raised an eyebrow but didn't ask questions. 3 days later, I had both results. The DNA from my wife's cup matched the baby's, confirming she was the mother. And the DNA from the coworker's glass? A 99.9% match to the baby. He was the father. I now had concrete proof not only that I wasn't the father, but also of who was. I kept this information to myself for the time being, proceeding with the divorce as planned. Things were moving along relatively smoothly until I received a letter from my wife's attorney. She was seeking child support. Despite knowing I wasn't the biological father, she was arguing that since I was married to her when the child was born and had acted as the father for the first month, I was legally responsible. In some states, this might have worked, but I had an ace up my sleeve. I requested a meeting with her lawyer, saying I wanted to discuss the child support demand. My wife chose not to attend, sending her attorney alone to what she probably thought would be a straightforward negotiation. The lawyer was confident, almost smug when we sat down. He started by outlining how much I would be expected to pay each month, talking about the best interests of the child and my moral obligation. I let him finish his speech. Then, without saying a word, I placed 2 folders on the table. "What's this?" he asked. The first folder contains the official paternity test showing I am not the father of the child, I said calmly. The second contains a DNA test matching the child to her actual biological father, along with his name, address, and place of employment. The lawyer opened the folders, his expression changing from confusion to shock as he read the contents. "How did you?" he began. "That's not important," I interrupted. "What is important is that your client has been lying. To me, possibly to you, and certainly to the court by seeking child support from someone she knows is not the father while concealing the identity of the actual father." The lawyer's face had gone pale. He closed the folders and reached for his phone. "I need to call my client," he said, his voice noticeably less confident than before. I could hear my wife's panicked voice on the other end of the line as the lawyer explained the situation. He was trying to keep his professional composure, but I could tell he was angry at being blindsided. After hanging up, he cleared his throat. "My client would like to withdraw the request for child support." "I thought she might," I said, standing up. "I'll be expecting a formal withdrawal in writing. And just so we're clear, I've made copies of everything in those folders." The divorce was finalized 3 months later. My wife didn't contest anything, agreeing to all my terms. I later heard through mutual friends that she had approached the coworker about his paternity. Apparently, he was shocked at first, then angry that she had hidden it from him. They're not together, but he's now paying child support and has visitation rights. As for me, I'm slowly rebuilding my life. I've moved to a new apartment, started focusing on my career again, even begun dating casually. The betrayal still hurts, but less each day. Sometimes I think about the baby girl who, for a brief time, I thought was my daughter. I hope she has a good life. None of this is her fault. If there's a lesson in all this, I suppose it's that the truth always finds a way to surface. And when it does, it's best to be on the right side of it. Update 1. It's been about 3 months since the divorce was finalized, and I thought I'd share some developments. First, the coworker, let's call him the bio dad, apparently stepped up after the initial shock wore off. A mutual friend told me he's taking parenting classes and has the baby every other weekend. I'm glad for the child's sake, though I still have complicated feelings about the whole situation. My ex-wife tried to reach out last month. She sent a long email apologizing, saying she'd been in therapy and realized the extent of the damage she'd caused. She asked if we could talk. I haven't responded. Maybe someday I'll be ready for that conversation, but not yet. The most unexpected development came from my former mother-in-law. She called me out of the blue, crying, saying she was ashamed of her daughter and that she missed me. We met for coffee, and she showed me pictures of the baby. She's growing fast, has more hair now. The dimples are even more pronounced. Looking at those photos was harder than I expected. My mother-in-law asked if I ever thought about maintaining some kind of relationship with the child. I told her I couldn't. It would be too painful, too complicated. She understood, but seemed sad. On the positive side, work has been going well. I threw myself into a big project after the divorce, and it paid off with a promotion. I've also started rock climbing at a local gym, something I'd always wanted to try but never made time for during my marriage. It's become a kind of therapy for me, focusing on each move, each hold, not thinking about anything else. I've had a few dates, nothing serious. It's strange being single again after so many years. Dating apps didn't even exist the last time I was looking. The whole process feels foreign, but also freeing in a way. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night, the reality of everything hitting me all over again. But those nights are becoming less frequent. I'm healing, slowly but surely. Update 2. 6 months have passed since my last update, and life has taken some unexpected turns. The biggest news is that the bio dad reached out to me. He found my email through a work contact and sent a message asking if we could meet. My first instinct was to ignore it, but curiosity got the better of me. We met at a brewery on the outskirts of town. It was awkward at first. What exactly is the protocol for meeting the guy who fathered a child with your ex-wife? But after a beer or two, the conversation flowed more easily. He apologized, said he had no idea my ex was married when they started their affair. She had removed her wedding ring at work and told everyone she was divorced. I'm not sure I believe him completely, but he seemed genuinely remorseful. He showed me pictures of the baby. She's walking now, saying a few words. He has full custody, which surprised me. Apparently, my ex had some kind of breakdown a few months ago and decided she wasn't ready for motherhood. She moved to another state for a fresh start. Part of me feels vindicated by this turn of events. She destroyed our marriage for a child she then abandoned. But mostly, I just feel sad for the little girl caught in the middle of all this adult chaos. The bio dad asked if I would consider being part of the child's life in some capacity, given that for a brief time, I was preparing to be her father. I told him I needed time to think about it. I'm still processing that request. On a lighter note, I've been seeing someone for about 3 months now. She's a climbing instructor at my gym. We started talking after a class, and things progressed naturally from there. She knows my story. I was upfront about it early on. She's been patient and understanding about my trust issues. I've also reconnected with friends I had somewhat neglected during my marriage. We've started a monthly poker night, which has become a highlight for me. It's good to laugh again, to feel like part of a community. My ex-wife's lawyer actually reached out recently too. He's leaving the firm where he worked and starting his own practice. He said handling my case made him reevaluate some things about family law. We ended up having lunch, and he gave me some valuable advice about finalizing some lingering financial matters from the divorce. Life isn't perfect, but it's moving forward. I'm starting to see my experience not just as a painful chapter, but as something that ultimately led me to a more authentic life. There are still hard days, but they're outnumbered by the good ones now. Update 3. It's been a year since my original post, and this will likely be my final update. After much consideration, I decided to meet the little girl. The bio dad invited me to her second birthday party, just a small gathering at a local park. I brought a gift and watched from a distance at first, not wanting to intrude. She's a happy child, full of energy and curiosity. The dimples that once caused me so much pain now just seem like a feature of her face, nothing more. When her dad introduced us, she shyly offered me a piece of her birthday cake. I accepted it with a smile, and that simple interaction somehow helped heal something in me I didn't realize was still broken. I won't be a regular part of her life. That wouldn't be appropriate, but I've made peace with her existence. She's an innocent in all this, and seeing her thriving despite the complicated circumstances of her birth gave me a sense of closure. As for my ex-wife, she's moved back to town. I ran into her at a grocery store last month. She's sober now. Apparently, she had been struggling with alcohol addiction for years, even during our marriage, hiding it well. She's working a program and making amends where she can. We talked briefly. She asked about my life, seemed genuinely happy when I told her things were good. She's seeing her daughter regularly now, supervised visits that are gradually increasing in duration. She didn't ask for forgiveness, which I appreciated. Some things can be acknowledged without being forgiven. My relationship with the climbing instructor has grown serious. We moved in together 2 months ago. She's patient with my occasional moments of insecurity, and I'm learning to trust again. We're talking about starting a family someday, on our terms, with honesty as our foundation. The experience changed me, there's no denying that. I'm more cautious now, more observant. But I'm also more appreciative of authenticity, more committed to living truthfully. For those going through something similar, all I can say is this. The pain doesn't disappear completely, but it does transform. What once felt like an ending eventually reveals itself as a redirection. And sometimes, that new path leads to exactly where you need to be.